Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today, Katie and I are going to be talking about why are millennials experiencing midlife crises? Can you help me here? No?
I think it's a midlife crisis, right?
Just why
Midlife crises?
crisis? So why are people experiencing a midlife crisis? Millennials. Why are millennials experiencing a midlife crisis sooner than previous generations? And is this true for Christians as well? Should it be? Should it not be? What can we do to not experience a midlife crisis? Folks, if you enjoy this podcast, as always, we would love it if you're able to leave a rating or a review on whatever platform you listen to our podcast on. And if you watch our podcast on YouTube, we would also love it if you're able to leave a comment or hit the like button or subscribe to our channel. Those things help our podcast reach more people. So with that said, we will now get this episode underway.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
All right. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this episode, Elisha, because you brought up the topic and I think it's really good. And I think the first thing that came to mind is just like a one-word answer.
Really?
Not one word, one sentence.
One sentence. Well, then let's go ahead and just let's finish up the episode right here with your sentence.
Okay. So I don't know if I'm off or not, but I was thinking why we're experiencing midlife crises sooner is because we're just getting it all sooner.
We're getting what all sooner?
I think we are achieving what we thought was the goal, whatever that is.
Interesting.
Sooner. And so then you have a crisis because I think as long as you're striving for something, you're assuming you aren't going to feel perfectly happy because happiness is out of reach. But then you expect once you get to that thing, it will satisfy you. I don't know, but I would say maybe that's why.
Yeah, the climb or the journey is in it of itself something that keeps people going, right?
Yeah.
That reason to wake up, the reason to keep going. And that can serve us all like in a very practical way. You think of the Lord's Prayer, give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those, or forgive us our debts as we forgive those that, are indebted to us or that have trespassed against us. It's like this daily walking with the Lord. It's this daily depending on Him. And I think that can show itself in daily needing to show up for a boss, daily needing to take care of the needs of your children. And within that, I think is a blessing that it just keeps us going. Like, oh, that's the purpose. That's the purpose. And when you have time away from those things, then you start asking why, and you start asking the existential questions, which can be good when you're going to the scripture for the why, right? Because there is a why when it comes to, why are we tending to the needs of our children? Or why do we continue to work so that we can pay the bills to continue on in this, tumultuous life that the Lord's put us in, or in this tumultuous world that the Lord's put us in. But something that, so I appreciate that take. That's interesting.
I don't know. As you're saying that, more's coming to mind. I want to hear what you're saying. It sounds like I was way off the mark.
Well,
Interesting, honey.
Yeah, the only reason that this topic in general sparked any interest for me was because you and I were driving in the car, I want to say 2 days. I think we were on the way to church. I think it was 2 days ago. And we were talking about how we appreciate that our parents have never really hit that plateau of just accepting like suboptimal things as though they were going to be a part of their identity and image for forever, which I think is common when people hit a certain age or they get a stage in life and they will just say, okay, instead of working to grow through something or improve a situation, they will almost get to the point of trying to validate it or say that it's actually better than everything else, even though that like the average person would look at it and say like, no, like that's not a good scenario. But they've it's that whole, what's the saying? Like you've made your bed. And so, or how does that saying go? It's like you made
So you have to lie in it?
Yeah. So you have to lie in it. Exactly. And so I think that's a human nature thing. When you make your bed and you get to a certain age and you're thinking, okay, wow, this is my financial situation. This is my health situation. This is my parenting philosophy and the fruit of it. This is what we chose for schooling our children. So like, and the fruit's starting to show from it. And then there's this, whether it's optimism or pride or, I think like what probably occurs oftentimes is what did Anne and Gary, not Anne and
Gilbert?
No, Anne and, no, sorry. I was thinking of the Family Life Today couple that we interviewed.
Dave and Ann Wilson.
Dave and Ann Wilson. Yeah. That many happy marriages, like the partners are delusional. Yeah.
This is a fun game we have going here.
Yeah, it is. You're the right partner for this game.
Guess what I'm saying?
I think that can happen too, where people actually are delusional, where they're thinking this is the best way. And so they're going to defend it. Whereas I think that my parents, and I think your parents did the same thing, where they have never once like planted their flag so deeply on, an issue other than like the core doctrines of Christianity, that they have to, I guess lose some. Well, actually, even if they did, they would never be afraid to like go back on what they said was so valid if it wasn't working.
Well, we've seen both our parents do that. We've seen both our parents say, hey, we did this and we wouldn't do that again. We regret doing that. Or even being in the middle of something, say, hey, we're doing this and we are now changing because we realize this isn't best for our family. And I can think of instances where both of our parents have done that recently.
Yeah. And I think it's actually not that easy to do.
No,
I think it's really hard. And I think that the older you get, the harder it gets. Because if you have that much more time committed to a certain way of life, and then you start realizing, okay, the fruit of this is actually not good. It's not positive fruit. It takes just a ton of humility. It takes a ton of just actually wanting growth to acknowledge that and then to make a change. And so anyways, we were having that conversation in the car and about how oftentimes people get to a certain age, throw out a number, call it middle age or call it, I think it just can happen at any point, but 30s, 40s, 50s. And it's like they've committed so much time and energy to a certain, I guess, lifestyle that they are now going to they're not going to depart from it. And so they're going to frame it in whatever way they need to in order to make themselves feel okay about it or to try to validate it to other people. And how we really want to be, and more like our parents, where that's like growth can always happen. Change can always happen. There doesn't come a time in your life where you're not able to or capable of changing and growing and even going back and righting past mistakes. That's what's so cool about mistakes of the past, is that when you are alive and you're in Christ, like the greatest like remedy to past failures is success, right? Like you're able to then turn those past failures into a story that led to success. And that can be in parenting. It can be in marriage. That's why we hear so many powerful testimonies of marriages that were like, yeah, there was mistakes, but it was the future success that then makes those mistakes like it's truly redeeming them. Right. And we hear that in business stories and in health stories, right? That's like, we love health transformation stories. And in order for there to be a transformation, the health had to be in a bad spot usually in the first place. And so I think when you have that mindset and you realize that is true, no matter how old you are, then Lord willing, and I don't think this just happens. I do think you have to seek the Lord on this and ask for him to give you this perspective, regardless of what age you get to or how many years you've spent, practicing a certain lifestyle or, parenting principle or whatever, having a certain standard that you just were like banking your life on, that you're able to say, you know what, actually, this isn't what's most helpful, or this actually isn't beneficial. Maybe the opposite of it is, now that I'm reconsidering things. And I want to have that attitude. And so I think that plays into the conversation that we're having around midlife and how people get to this crisis at that stage in life.
Yeah, I think one reason why that can be so hard is because you have to acknowledge that was a waste. Like the value that I get from that is in the takeaway, but I have to do a 180. And what's tempting is to not want to say, I made the wrong decisions over and over and over. I would like to just come up with ways to make my decision sound good. You know, like, because we're masters of, in our own minds, talking ourselves into things.
Well, I think the lie is that you think that if you were to do a 180, those things would be a waste.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
That's what you're telling yourself.
Yeah, that's what you're
well,
saying.
If I pivot now, then all those years of school or all those years in that career or all those years of me parenting this way or all those years of being a part of that church or all those years, whatever, you know, of holding to this stance will be a waste. Where in reality, if you continue to grow, you're continuing to be transformed, you know, by the renewing of your mind more and more into the image and reflect more and more Christ, then all those things are actually redeemed. And there is no such a thing, I think, as like wasted time. And I think of that. Yeah, I don't know. So I think that's the lie that people believe is like, well, man, it's been this many years. But
I think there's some truth to it too, because we can't take back time. So, for instance, there's a family that I think of where they had a child that they parented a certain way and this child walked away from the Lord. And so they realized that later in life and they parented the second half of their kids differently and they had different fruit, but they had to acknowledge, hey, we did things wrong. We messed up. We're now doing things differently, but they didn't try to defend all their parenting before and say, hey, we did everything right. And it was just this child's problem. Because I think if we do that, then we continue living in our mistakes, then acknowledging, hey, this was a mistake. We would like to learn from it and pivot.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are like things that can occur in one's past that you can't undo.
Like there is some irreversible damage sometimes from our decisions.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's always so good to remember our total dependence on the Lord, right? With scenarios like that. I can remember, as embarrassing as it is, it wasn't until I think I was 22 or 23 that a relational thing happened in my life where I felt like I couldn't go fix it and kind of salvage my reputation and make all the parties, you know, good with me. And it's wild. I mean, that was the first time where I was like, well, okay, that didn't go well. I can't right that wrong here. I just need to move on with my life. And I guess what you can take from it are the lessons.
Yeah.
And then you can then pass those on to the other children or to other Christians. And that's something that actually kind of frustrates me a little bit in the church, is I do think there is an unwillingness. Like I said, our parents are not this way. I'm so blown away by their humility, because we are to look to the, I think, elders in our churches and our local communities. And I'm not saying this is everybody's community. And I think our elders are very mature and humble and people like that. But I do think it is a human nature thing to, even when you are older, your children are raised to, for the sake of ego or pride, defend the way that you raised your children, for better or for worse. And I think it takes this true humility and wanting to bless your grandchildren or other people in your church to acknowledge, like, hey, yeah, we did this for 15 years. And to tell you the truth, I would not encourage other people to do that. And like, yeah, the Lord's merciful, he's gracious, or whatever, you know, like all of that. I do think there could be more of that, honestly, but that's just my youth speaking here from older people.
We'll see what we say when we're down the road. Get It All Done Club is for the woman who wants to stop drowning in motherhood and wants to start thriving. If you want to have more free time to do the things that you love to do and become more efficient at the tasks that you have to do each day, join the Get It All Done Club. There's thousands of women who have been through the program and who are currently in our private community that is off of social media. I'm in there monthly, live, answering your questions, talking with you guys, adding new content monthly. If you would like to get a little taste of what I teach in the Get It All Done Club and see a behind the scenes of what the program actually looks like, I do have a free masterclass for you guys. It's linked down below, and it will teach you how to have a more peacefully productive home this week. Exactly. Okay, so I want to know, Elisha, what is causing midlife crises, though?
Yeah, so you and I talked about that on the way to church a couple days ago, and then as I do, I was listening to NPR, and there was a segment talking. They were referencing an article that was written a few weeks ago on Vox. So all these are like very liberal outlets. I hope people always understand that Katie and I are extremely conservative, and I don't have an iPhone. I don't have devices to listen to things on when I'm driving. So I listen to the radio. And so it's like Moody radio or like NPR. It's like kind of,
Well, and I like listening to the full spectrum of what people have to say about issues.
Oh, me too.
I feel like you can get in a tunnel, and like actually it was really interesting to hear this debate. This is kind of a sidetrack that someone got into that we knew, and it ended up getting filmed on YouTube. And it was so interesting. It was on abortion. And it was very interesting to hear the other side's arguments on abortion. Because I feel like the pro-life movement has so many like mic drop claims, where it's like, well, how are you going to argue that?
Yeah.
And then hearing from someone who, it was crazy to hear how they in their own brain disprove these things. Like their answers for these things.
Yeah.
They didn't. But the point is that they try to, it's like, whoa, like that doesn't work on them.
Yeah,
Does that make
what they
sense?
considered mic drop moments
They had it in an answer for.
is outside of logic though. It's like they're not
I know, but
using
it's interesting to hear how it's twisted.
I agree.
So then you're like, oh, I get why people aren't all on the same page. Anyways, all that said, I think it's really important to hear from other people.
It was really, I think, enlightening because, again, reason and logic, morality, truth, like when you are pro-life, you have all those things on your side. And then you realize like the opposing side, all their mic drop things are based on emotion or they're based on sentiment, and that's all, and they're fine with that. It's like, we're going to move forward with this. And I think that was really enlightening because I think it takes a work of the Lord to change people's hearts. Because you can have all the information laid out for you or all the facts. But if the sentiment isn't there, or the feelings aren't there, then it's going to do no good.
Well, okay, this is what stuck out to me, though, I guess, is what made it different. It's like when you hear like Charlie Kirk or someone debate someone, you're still getting a conservative viewpoint on that debate because it's being edited or what he's choosing to show versus having someone who's liberal controlling the debate. And it was like, whoa, I don't watch these liberal YouTubers. So it was interesting to hear their stance when they choose to edit the footage and how they think paints them in a good light. So anyways, I think that's why it's interesting to hear straight from like NPR, CNN, these different articles, because it's like, oh, this is them trying to put their best foot forward.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is like their take without it being painted in a certain light. And so I don't know.
Oh yeah. I don't feel bad about listening to NPR.
No.
I think a lot of conservative outlets and then Christian outlets could learn a lot from these. For one, the art form, they just like do a better job with the production, right? And they've got probably a way bigger budget and all of that, but it's like their creativity and their storytelling, I just think is better than any that I'm aware of, like conservative or Christian outlets. Anyways, so I was listening to NPR and they were referencing this article written by Vox, like Vox.com, another liberal source for like social issues and news and stuff. And it was an article talking about how millennials are experiencing midlife crisis is younger than, I'm going to mess up saying that every time because I actually don't know the right way to say it. Why we're experiencing midlife crisis at a younger age. So the title of the article is "The Midlife Crisis is Coming for Millennials." LOL. How millennials are freaking out about being halfway to death when everyone's broke and already in therapy. And so the interview was interesting and they brought up some interesting points. And then I went and I read the actual article and I thought it was interesting. My fear is that because I think that what my initial thought is like, well, Christians are outside of this study, this case study, right? We're outside of this group. These are people that care about worldly accolades, about personal satisfaction, where Christians care about things of eternal value. They care about sacrifice. They care about pouring into things that I guess have a longer, the return on that investment is going to be a lot longer down the road than even their lifetime. But then I was reading it further and I'm like, man, we are all so prone to this. I think that I never want to become so like, I guess I'm confident in Christ, but I also am living in this human body, right? So like, am I confident in my salvation and my righteousness before God because of Christ's atoning work? I am. But I also want to be well aware of the fact that I'm in a human mortal body that is susceptible to these fleshly things, right? To getting caught up in your youth, to freaking out about death, to wanting to see your work come to fruition in a time frame where you get the glory for it and you get to experience the payoff from that work. And so I do think it is worth noting for millennials, like, okay, a ton of people are freaking out right now about their age, about their, the losing their youth, not being where they thought they were going to be financially or in their career or in their family. Because those are things that are noted in this, is that people, they don't own homes. They aren't where they're at and where they thought they were going to be in their career. They don't have the family that they thought they were going to have. And then, so that's one reason people are freaking out. And the other reason is people have all those things and it's not everything they thought it would be. Right. Which I think is, the classic, like, well, you need to have a hope in Christ with those things, even when you have those things. So that I just thought was interesting timing after you and I talked about how our parents, whether that was midlife, current day, have never ceased to pursue growth in the Lord and modifying their life so that it is optimized for what the Lord has called them to, and having a willingness and a readiness to do that. And I want to adopt that attitude. And I personally think that is it. Again, we'll see what happens as we continue to get older, but I do think that is an antidote to a crisis. It's like, hey, we're always growing, and also our hope is in eternity.
Yeah, I think it's funny as you're saying these things. As Christians, I think the biggest antidote to this is God's design when it comes to multi-generational living. Because when you really aren't freaking out about death or your youth or anything, because the whole plan for your life is seen it, like you always have youth because you're raising your children. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm just like not really worried that much about my life right now. Like, I love my life, but I feel like I have so much youth at my fingertips because of all our kids.
Nice.
I'm not even joking. Like, I'm just like, whoa, so much can happen here. Like, how do we harness this energy? I just want to use the rest of my life trying to harness this energy. And then it's like, because they're, if we steward them well, they are fruit, kind of the ultimate fruit of our life that God's blessed us with. And so I guess I just see more opportunity than what I've ever seen before. And then I can't even imagine, God willing, they are raised up in the nurture and admonition of Him and are carrying honor values to our grandchildren. And what a joy that is going to be to, again, have all this fresh youth, like untapped potential to use for God's kingdom and here on earth. So I think that time frame is super inspiring and exciting. And when I'm living in that time frame, I'm not really worried about my body breaking down or not hitting the goals I had before I die or something, because they are my goal,
I agree. And yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I do think that when you align your ambition to God's design and you kind of submit it to God's design, I do like growing old is a gift, right? It's not guaranteed for everyone. And so even the fact that you're like, that they say you're halfway to death, and it's like, maybe like each year is a gift. Like, I hope to see my children's children. I hope to see my great grandchildren born. And I want to see my grandchildren raising my great grandchildren in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And so my goals are, you can call that a goal or an aspiration or a vision or whatever you want to say. Like, I want that. I really do. I also know that like my body's not going to feel very good at that point. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to have the youth on my side, or athleticism or vitality or the things that maybe I've been able to enjoy up until this point. But you shift your you're not even shifting your value system. It's like that was your value system all along.
Yeah, like I think we're programmed to desire youth. I think the problem is we just keep desiring it in ourselves.
Wow.
Instead of just, desiring, like there's something so appealing about the youth of our children and the youth of our grandchildren. Like youth is always with us.
Yeah, like newness of life.
Yeah.
Like energy, vitality.
Fresh, innocence, ambition, eagerness, excitement, curiosity.
Yeah, like endless possibilities.
Yeah.
Wow.
Health even,
potential.
Our kids don't have the... I am amazed. I go to gymnastics tonight and I see everything Lucy's doing. And I'm like, my wrist would kill doing that. Or like my back would kill doing that.
Right.
I'm only 30. I can't imagine and then give me another few decades. But it's like, they just have so much fun. Or I see the kids running around, just lap after lap after lap. And I'm like, maybe I should like take a little break, don't like overdo it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what kids do. Like, anyways, it's just fun to see in them.
Yeah. Well, you think of, man, what is the proverb? We should probably look it up. But the glory of a young man is his strength. And then how does it end? Like an old man's gray hair is a crown of glory. It's his crown of glory. Is that do you know how it goes? You're just looking at me. I feel like you know way more proverbs by heart than I do.
No, it's the hoary head is old man's glory.
Great. So the glory of a young man is his strength.
I wish I could finish this one for you, but I can't.
A man's gray hair is his crown of glory or whatever.
Yeah, it's something to that effect.
Something like that. But I think with that gray hair, in theory, comes wisdom and knowledge and understanding. And when you read the Proverbs, you realize how valuable understanding is, or knowledge, or wisdom. And a lot of those things, really, you have to have time to be able to garner and to experience. And I think that we're well aware of the fact that we live in a culture that idolizes youth, right? Like that idolizes the hoary head is a crown of glory if it be found in the way of righteousness. Wow, is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome.
It's different than the one you were saying, because I know what you're saying. This is Proverbs 16:31. The glory of a young man is his strength.
Yeah, which reference is that?
And children's children is the crown to old men.
Oh,
That's how
nice.
that one finishes,
Wow.
I believe.
That's even better.
Yeah, that's the...
Children's children are
I think
crown.
that's it. That would be so applicable to this. Okay, hold on.
Okay, look that one up. But when you look at the Proverbs as a whole, it's like, get wisdom, get understanding, view it as precious treasure. And when you actually have that worldview, growing old can be a gift because you're growing in understanding and in knowledge and in wisdom. And then I think you have that excitement to pass it on to the next generation and to share it with them. What is it, Katie?
Okay, so children's children are a crown to old men is the...
Nice.
Okay, hold on.
Well, is that a different one than what we were talking about?
Is Proverbs 17:6. And then the one you were saying, so I'm beating all around the bush. The one you were saying is Proverbs 20:29. The glory of a young man is their strength. The gray hair, what is this? New International Version, New Living Translation.
Word. Get a Christian version on here. Holy smokes.
The glory of young men is their strength, and the beauty of old men is the gray head.
Nice.
Okay, so I think that's the one you were saying, and I just was throwing out.
It's okay, but
Proverbs.
all of those are applicable. The point is, I think that if you value what the Lord values, if you value understanding and wisdom and knowledge, and you're garnering those things, I think what you need to do is value those in your youth, though, right? Like if all you idolize in your youth are your good looks or your zeal or your energy and your vitality, and then you see this occur in real time. Like I've seen this happen where it's like women that put all their value in their appearance get to an age and it's like, wow, now you don't have that and you're far less attractive than ever. And the women that put their value in the Lord's word or in parenting, their children, in marriage, they are at the same age. And it's like, somehow you've become more attractive. Mm-hmm. It's a really wild thing when you are able to watch that happen, and you're kind of like, wow, this is bizarre.
It's almost like how they say inner beauty or whatever. I feel like you get kind of turned inside out as you get older.
Whoa.
And you can mask it when you're younger because beauty's beauty and you don't really see what's on the inside. But I feel like as as you age, you get kind of turned inside out. And the woman that I think why excessive, all the, I'm going to just say plastic surgery. Okay. I'm not saying I'm never going to do any plastic surgery, just for the record, but I'm saying we all know, so this isn't a judgment towards anybody that does that, but you all know what I'm saying.
Yeah, like the huge lips.
You've seen the woman that looks like she just came from Mars, and you're like, is this an actual human species? We all know what I'm talking about here, okay? And I feel like that look is so tasteless because you're seeing what the value system is on the inside. Like all they value, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like a clear picture, an external picture of what's going on internally.
Right.
I feel like.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's nothing there. It's empty. It's not just.
Yeah. Again, maybe there are people that do the procedures in a very high end way where it ages well. But to me, like people that do intrusive, for lack of a better term, procedures on their appearance, it gets worse and worse and worse as time goes on.
It doesn't usually age well.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think the biggest problem with it, honestly, is not someone doing something here and doing something there. It is, I think you get a, what do you call it when you have anorexia and you look in the mirror and you think you're still fat? It's like you have this,
it's like,
it's not dystopia. It's
just
like
dysphoria.
Yeah, dysphoria. I think that happens when we start to mess with our bodies. I think people have a hard time staying sane when they look at themselves. I think that's why we start seeing something. Oh,
like they
okay.
fix on a certain
I think you
attribute.
start to fixate. And that's why it's like, oh, maybe you don't notice someone has their lips done and it actually looks good or whatever. And then like 3 days down the road, it's just like, whoa, what is going on there? It's because I think it's never big enough. It's never good enough. The wrinkles are never gone enough.
Right.
So I think that can happen.
Yeah, but
I still think some of it's done tastefully.
You're really holding out.
I am. I'm not going on the record for anything here.
Yeah.
But I don't think, you can tell when that is the focus, is just clinging to youth.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just not an appealing thing to cling to our own youth. We should just be investing into other people and just have such a full life that's not a thing. Like we aren't worried about that like we were in our 20s.
Yeah. So anyways, the article talks about, again, so like to what you were saying, the article talks about like, okay, historically, this whole midlife crisis was, the archetype was a man that, reached his 50s and had done something significant in his career, but then like he left his wife, dyed his hair or got, like a wig or something,
tips.
or bleach tips, bought a Ferrari, started dating someone, way too young. Right. And, that's like that archetype for the midlife crisis. And it looks different now is what they're saying, where it's like, okay, people, maybe they're staying married, but they're entering into a depression, or they're questioning all of their value system, where it's like everything I thought I believed is actually not true. And it's interesting how they like put a high value on things like self-care and therapy. And it's just bizarre because it's like, man, because they will even say like, in spite of all these people seeing the value in things like therapy and self-care, they still find themselves at this wit's end. And
surprise, surprise. The more they focus on themselves, the more any of us focus on ourselves, the less happy we become.
Yeah. And it is hard if you don't have an objective metric to look at for what you are to be pursuing or what success looks like as a parent, as a person, then what becomes preeminent is how you feel about things, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the world. And you have to get outside of how you feel and look at a objective reality. I'm not saying feelings don't matter. I think feelings do matter, but I think they need to be submitted to God's design, to God's reality, to the fabric of reality that God has put in place. And so instead of saying, I don't feel good about this marriage I'm in, clearly it's not right. Or I don't feel good about having children. I don't feel good about quitting my job to stay at home with my kids and pouring into them. It's like, well, feelings need to be submissive. They need to submit to what God's design is. And you need to train your feelings. I think we can train our feelings to align with God's order and what He what God feels is and thinks and has ordained to be what's right. And so as we've entered into this, I guess, time frame where there is no such thing as objective truth, it's like, what's your truth? And this is even, I mean, this is where it's totally crept into Christianity, where it's just people saying, what does that Bible verse, what does that Bible verse mean to you? You know, or what is Jesus to you? Or like, what is Christianity to you? As though it was this customizable thing, where rather than it being this objective, factual thing, you know, that's just based in reality of like, well, I don't like these Bible verses actually have a meaning, regardless of how I feel about them. These, and it's God's word and it's his truth. Like God is a person and he is the way that he is, regardless of how I want to believe him to be in my brain, or regardless of how I view, you know, justice being, or how I view, you know, kindness being. Like he just is the way that he is, and he is those things. He is just and he is kindness. So we need to, you know, we need to submit our thoughts of all those things to him. And I think once you do that, I'm not saying that like your feelings instantly follow, but you have to lead your feelings with truth, and you have to submit them to truth. Otherwise, you end up going every which way, following your feelings. Like we know that our feelings lead us astray, and that's, I think, ultimately what midlife crises are. It's they're getting up in their feelings, and their feelings are leading them astray.
Yeah, it's funny when you talk about that first part of the millennialism. The issues are, I expected to own a home. I expected to, you know, be whatever. What were the things that they listed? Be making more money.
Have a family, and be married.
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy because I think that this is something that we talked about on our homeschool episode. Things just aren't assumed. And I think millennials have assumed a lot of things. I think we assume, you know, just like in that homeschooling episode, our kids will be able to get a blue collar career, or our kids will be able to, you know, we talked about a lot of assumptions that we can have as homeschoolers. And I think the same thing just happens with millennials. I think we grew up thinking, well, of course we're going to get married. Of course we're going to have kids. Of course by 35 or something, we're going to own a home and be financially stable. And there's just no of course in life. Like, one, God has a plan for our life. And so there may be sickness involved in that, or infertility involved in that, or singleness involved in that, or, you know, it's something totally different than what we had planned. And then also all that stuff takes a ton of work. And I think that if millennial parents have any blame to be put on them, because I think millennials like to blame their parents. So if there's any blame to put on the parents, it's making life too easy for their kids.
Oh, you mean, so you'd put that blame on millennials' parents?
Blame on millennials' parents.
Got it.
I think they made millennials think that everything was going to work out for them. They were the best. They were great. And millennials are still trying to grow up in their 30s. I mean, 38, like, it's crazy just whenever like a YouTube short rolls along my path and I'm like, this woman's like almost a grandma and she's complaining about like the most petty things. Yeah. And it's just nuts. Like she's 38, 39, 40. And we're still sitting here complaining about what our parents aren't doing or whatever. Like we need to move on at that point. So anyways, I just think that we're just kind of oversized babies sometimes. And I feel this way. I still have these entitlements where I'm just like, why do I feel this way? Like life should just be easy for me, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I do too. It's wild how it's just, again, I don't know if this is human nature, sinful nature, like that entitlement of like deconstructing various things. I mean, like, well, why didn't I get it that way? Or why didn't, you know, so-and-so do this for me, or they got that opportunity. Why didn't I get that opportunity? Or so-and-so's parents did this. Why didn't mine do that? And what does that get you? I think that's, you know, if there's one thing that we've garnered from all the self-help books we've read, you know, going through network marketing and then business and then just general self-development books, it's this like, okay, these are the facts. So what are you going to do about it? And you hear that in you hear it instantly, right? Because two different millennials can talk about the housing situation that their parents had versus what they had and have two totally different responses to it, right? One can say, well, like, housing's 7 times the cost, or I can't afford a house. They could. It was easy for them. It's impossible for me. And the other person could state the exact same facts and then say, so this is what I'm going to do about it. I've got to approach it entirely differently. And we know which one's going to be more successful. Like, we know which one's going to have a better life. And they're dealing with the exact same facts.
Okay, well, this cracks me up because there's either two things with the whole housing thing, because this just keeps coming up. One, okay, maybe housing was easier for your parents, but that was the only thing that was easier for them.
Right. That's like, I agree. Because it was, I think it was like mathematically way easier to buy a home, to own a home. And that is like historically, that is the best way to like massively increase your net worth, right? To change your station in life is through owning a home or owning real estate. I
didn't know that, but that's cool. And so basically, yippee, your parents got out on the house. They got to buy a house. But everything else in their life was harder. Okay. So you don't want to swap generations.
Well, that's what's even interesting about this article is they acknowledge that like the median income, the quality of life, all these things are better for millennials. But then we fixate on the things that are not better, like our ability to own a home or.
Okay. And this is number 2 that I was going to say, though.
Okay. Sorry. I cut you off.
No, number 2 is there's tons of millennials that own homes. So I don't know why it's so like we're getting $7 coffees every day, and our kids are going to gyms that cost $100 a month, and
like $500 a month or $300 a month. Yeah,
whatever. All I'm saying is, I mean, you've got a car payment with leather seats, or maybe it's just a big homeschooler van that costs a ton of money. You know what I'm saying? Like, money is going places. We have higher median incomes, so if we stop spending it all these other ways, you can still buy a house. Anyways, you guys know, I'm not the most sympathetic person. If I heard like one person's specific story on like, this is why I'm frustrated, I'd totally be like, oh, I feel you. But like when I hear these big, broad claims of like everyone getting together and complaining about something, I'm just kind of like, guys.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like okay, like on one hand, yeah, mathematically, it's way more challenging to be able to purchase a home now for people. But also, like, to your point, when you actually break down the life that our parents had as a whole, right? Not just that one part of their life. I don't think many people would trade that life. I think of like, I'll just use my parents as an example. Like my dad was able to buy a home at 19 years of age, right? He was also working full time, like as a logger. And he wasn't like, my parents didn't go to Hawaii. They didn't do an overnight getaway together until their 20th anniversary, right? Like 20th anniversary. No, they didn't overnight. Sorry. They didn't overnight on their 15th anniversary. They went to Hawaii on their 20th anniversary.
Yeah, but like 15th and 20th, that's a long ways into marriage to go overnight somewhere.
And then it's like, so what were they doing that entire time that they were owning a home? They were living in a small town, not eating out. Like they weren't going out to restaurants. They were not buying $7 coffees. They were living a very small, humble life.
They were living in their home.
They're living in their home.
And that's all they were doing.
I am like, man, I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to go out. I want to be able to, get go to my coffee shops. And I can't speak for every millennial, but I feel like the attitude is it's like, well, yeah, of course we want our trips. We want to be able to go out with friends. We want all these, I guess, luxuries, smartphones and gym memberships. My gym memberships weren't a thing when my parents were at that stage, right?
Apple Watches, all the technology we have, Alexa, laptops.
Yeah, none of those things. My parents didn't have any of those things. But they did have a home. And so is a home a worthy thing to pursue? It absolutely is. Can it change your net worth? Absolutely. But it's like we fixate on that. And I'm like, well, my parents didn't have like 90% of the things that we all enjoy right now. And I think, so anyways, that's kind of how I view it. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. We should probably wrap things up.
What's even happening? Okay, guys, it was 100 degrees here today, and it's still like 95 degrees in this room. So
Yeah. And our kids are supposed to be in bed, but they're not. So we should probably go take care of that. Folks, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.